The room was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that pressed against the ears until it became unbearable. Sophia Baker sat alone by the narrow window of her tiny New York apartment, the dim glow of a single lamp casting soft light over the old photograph in her trembling hands. It was a worn picture, edges curled, the image fading with time, her mother Leona Baker smiling warmly, and beside her, a little girl who mirrored Sophia's face perfectly, her twin sister, her other half, her shadow. Both are gone now, swallowed by a fire that never should have happened. Sophia traced the outlines with her finger, her throat tightening. It's been 15 years, she thought, yet the sound of her sister's terrified screams, the acrid smoke, and her mother's cold hand slipping from hers remained as vivid as if it were yesterday. That night the world had told her she was an orphan. Her father, Mayor Richard Clark, a man celebrated in Los Angeles for his charisma and power, was nothing but a ghost in her life, unwilling to acknowledge her existence. But Sophia knew the truth. He wasn't a ghost. He was the hand that struck the match. The man who allowed her mother to be painted as a mistress, a scandalous stain on his perfect political life. The man who turned his back while his first family burned. Her jaw tightened, the photo trembling between her fingers. I will not stop. Not until the Clark family falls. She whispered, her voice steady, though her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Outside, the city moved on taxi horns, subway rumbles, laughter spilling from the diner across the street. Life went on indifferent to her pain. But Sophia had lived long enough in the shadows. It was time to return to Los Angeles, to walk into the heart of the family that had destroyed hers. And she would do it not as Sophia Baker, the abandoned daughter. She would do it as someone else, someone they would welcome without suspicion. The Clark estate stood like a fortress in Beverly Hills. Even from the taxi window, its white stone pillars, wrought iron gates, and manicured gardens looked like something out of a movie. A place untouchable, where secrets could be buried beneath luxury. Sophia adjusted the plain blouse and skirt she wore, her hair pulled back modestly. She was no longer the sharp-eyed woman of New York. She had become Kara Simmons, a quiet, obedient domestic worker looking for a chance. The gates creaked open after the guard's cursory glance, and the car rolled forward. Her heart pounded. Every step closer felt like walking into the lion's den. Inside, the mansion's air smelled of roses and polished marble. A grand chandelier glittered above the entryway, portraits of smiling faces lining the walls. Faces that looked happy, untouchable faces she despised. From the top of the sweeping staircase descended a woman elegant in a silk dress, hair perfectly styled, diamonds glittering at her neck. Her eyes were cold, her smile sharper than glass. Victoria Clark. She stopped before Sophia, looking her up and down, as if evaluating a piece of furniture. You must be Kara. Victoria, said, her tone clipped. Yes, ma'am, Sophia replied softly, lowering her gaze. Her voice carried the humility she had practiced for weeks. And why do you want to work here? Sophia clasped her hands together, heart hammering against her ribs. I need a steady job, ma'am. I can cook, clean, do laundry, and handle household tasks. I have no family obligations outside, so that I can dedicate myself entirely. Victoria's sharp eyes studied her. The silence stretched, pressing on Sophia's lungs. Finally, the woman gave a slight, almost reluctant nod. We'll see if you're worth keeping, Victoria said coolly. Start today. If you fail, you'll be gone by tomorrow. Sophia lowered her head, hiding the flicker of triumph in her eyes. Thank you, ma'am. I won't disappoint you. You already have, she thought silently. The moment you let my mother burn. The day passed in a blur of instructions and duties. A senior housekeeper, Mrs. Betty, showed her around the gourmet kitchen with imported appliances, the tennis court gleaming in the California sun, the endless halls hung with priceless art. Every detail screamed wealth. But to Sophia, each glittering chandelier and polished floorboard was just another reminder of what had been stolen from her. By 10 o'clock, the family gathered for brunch. Sophia watched from the corner as Victoria sat at the head of the table, her posture regal. To her right, Claudia Clark scrolled on her phone, her laughter shallow and self-absorbed. "Mom, can we go to Rodeo Drive later? There's a new handbag collection dropping." "We'll see," Victoria replied, disinterested. On the other side sat Marco, barely 16. Headphones looped around his neck, sneakers so expensive they sparkled under the chandelier. "I need a new gaming laptop," he muttered. "This one's too slow." Sophia's lips curved faintly, a perfect family in the eyes of the world, yet she could already see the cracks. When Victoria asked who had cooked the meal, Mrs. Betty gestured toward Sophia. "The new girl did, ma'am." Sophia bowed slightly. "I hope it's to your liking." Claudia took a bite, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Wow, this is actually good." Even Marco glanced up from his phone. "Not bad." Victoria's mouth curved the faintest shadow of a smile. "Potential. Don't let it be wasted." Sophia lowered her gaze again, but inside her chest swelled with grim satisfaction. Step 1, win their trust. Step 2, destroy it. That night in the small servants' room at the far end of the hall, Sophia finally let the mask slip. She sat on the bed, hands shaking from the day's weight. She had smiled, bowed, played the role of the obedient helper. But beneath it all, the rage burned hotter. Her phone buzzed softly under the pillow. She pulled it out and dialed a number she had memorized by heart. "Hello," a low male voice answered. "It's me, Danny," she whispered. "I'm inside. I need eyes on this family, especially the children. Claudia. Marco. I need to know about every move they make. Are you sure about this, Sophia?" Danny's voice was cautious. "If they find out who you are, they won't." She cut in sharply. "They can't. This is the only way." There was a pause, then a sigh. "All right. I'll set up the watch." She ended the call, her grip tight on the phone. Her reflection in the small mirror caught her attention. For a moment, she saw her mother's eyes staring back. "This is for you, Mom. For my sister. They'll pay." The next morning, the California sun streamed through the expansive veranda windows as Sophia carried a tray of breakfast pastries. She passed the glass doors overlooking the pool and stopped. There, slicing through the water with powerful strokes, was a man. Broad shoulders, muscles tense under the morning light, his movements precise and strong. Droplets slid down his tanned skin when he emerged, catching the light like diamonds. He grabbed a towel, rubbing water from his hair, and then his eyes locked onto hers. Sophia's breath caught. His gaze was calm, assessing, almost piercing. He wasn't like Marco. He was careless and spoiled. Nor like Claudia, shallow and distracted. There was something heavier in those eyes. He walked toward her, toweling his hair, voice low and unbothered. "You're new." Sophia forced her lips into a polite smile, dipping her head. "Yes, sir. I'm Kara, the new maid." The corner of his mouth twitched, half amusement, half dismissal. "Lawrence Clark," he said before turning away. Sophia stood frozen, her tray trembling in her hands. She had expected the Clarks to be arrogant, spoiled, and predictable. But this man, this Lawrence, was different. And the way his eyes lingered on her, sharp and unreadable, unsettled her more than she cared to admit. As he walked away, Sophia realized something chilling. If I'm not careful, he might see through me. Morning in Beverly Hills arrived like a stage curtain, lifting lavish, deliberate, and bright enough to blind those unprepared for it. The Clark mansion came alive early, as if wealth itself demanded punctuality. Gardeners clipped rose bushes in neat rows. A chef arranged silver platters in the kitchen. And Sophia, still wearing the modest apron that disguised her like a shadow, slipped quietly into the rhythm of the house. She heard Claudia's laughter drifting down the hall from the second-floor balcony, a sharp sound like glass against porcelain. Sophia knocked softly before entering the young woman's suite. The room was chaos disguised as luxury, an avalanche of designer dresses draped across chairs. Shoes scattered like casualties of a late-night battle makeup palettes, spread across the dresser like a painter's studio. Finally, Claudia sighed, still scrolling through her phone. Her long nails tapped the screen impatiently. "Kara, fix this. And be careful. Half of these cosmetics aren't even sold in the US yet. My followers would die if they knew what I had." "Yes, ma'am," Sophia replied smoothly, though her lips twitched inwardly. Each lipstick tube costs more than her old rent in New York. As she folded dresses and arranged perfumes, Claudia continued, her voice breezy but sharp underneath. "I have a photo shoot this afternoon. You'll need to make sure my white blazer is steamed perfectly. Any wrinkles or any stains, and it's your job on the line." "Goth." Sophia lowered her head. Understood. But as she adjusted the blazer on its hanger, she caught Claudia's reflection in the mirror. Eyes lined with exhaustion, a twitch at the corner of her mouth, as though the smile she presented to the world was a mask that barely held. Perfect family, Sophia thought. Perfect illusion. Downstairs, Marco sprawled on the living room couch, headphones around his neck. A gaming controller clutched in his hands. The giant screen lit his pale face as his character sprinted across a digital battlefield. "Kara," he called without looking away. "Find my limited edition sneakers. The black pair with the red stripe. They better not be scratched." Sophia bit back a sigh. "Of course, sir." The boy was spoiled, but when she brought him a tray of water, she caught the slump of his shoulders, the faint shadows under his eyes. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly. He shrugged, eyes still glued to the screen. "Doesn't matter. No one listens anyway." For a heartbeat, Sophia saw not a spoiled rich kid, but a lonely boy, hiding behind flashing pixels. She placed the glass gently on the table and said nothing more. "They're breaking already," she realized. "All I have to do is wait. At noon." Victoria Clark summoned her. Sophia found her mistress on the veranda, a porcelain teacup balanced between manicured fingers, sunglasses shading her sharp eyes. "Kara, Victoria," said her voice smooth as cream, but twice as cold. "I've been watching you." Sophia kept her posture steady. "Yes, ma'am. You're efficient. You're quiet. That's good. But don't mistake my approval for affection. I don't tolerate mistakes." "Yes, ma'am." Victoria leaned closer, lowering her sunglasses. "Tell me why this house? You could have found work in dozens of places in the city. Why here?" Sophia's throat tightened, but she forced a small, humble smile. "Because I heard the Clarks are a family of excellence. I thought I would learn discipline and purpose if I could serve here." For a moment, Victoria's gaze lingered sharp and unyielding, as though she were trying to peel away layers of Sophia's skin. Then at last, she reclined again, lips curving faintly. "Good answer. I don't like weakness. Please don't disappoint me." Sophia bowed her head, her hands steady, though her chest burned. "Weakness. You'll soon learn who's weak in this house." That evening, The Clark family gathered for dinner. The long mahogany table glittered with crystal glasses and polished silverware. Richard Clark had not yet returned from City Hall, leaving Victoria to preside over the meal. Claudia uploaded selfies between bites of salad. Marco ate quickly, distracted by his phone. And at the far end of the table sat Lawrence. Sophia approached quietly, refilling glasses, laying out dishes. Lawrence didn't speak. He didn't laugh like Claudia, or complain like Marco. He ate in silence, his eyes down his presence, both part of the family and apart from it. Yet when Sophia leaned close to place a plate before him, she felt his gaze flicker upward, sharp as a blade grazing her skin. Their eyes met just for a second. Her breath caught. His expression was unreadable, calm, cold, and yet searching. She looked away quickly, retreating into the shadows of the dining room. Does he suspect? The thought stabbed at her ribs. She had been careful, so careful. But Lawrence's eyes unsettled her more than Victoria's scrutiny or Claudia's vanity ever could. Night fell heavily over the mansion. The halls quieted save for the faint clink of glasses as Sophia polished the last set of dishes in the kitchen. Mrs. Betty, the senior housekeeper, bustled past, muttering under her breath. Strange boy, that Lawrence. Doesn't fit in. Doesn't try to. Always reading, always keeping to himself. Sometimes I wonder if he even belongs here. Sophia paused, sponge dripping in her hand. What do you mean? Betty shrugged, lowering her voice. He's the mayor's son, but not like the others. Victoria barely acknowledges him. The staff say he's polite, but distant, invisible. Some say he was adopted. No one really knows the whole story. Sophia's heart quickened. Adopted. Distant. Invisible. She had come here to dismantle the Clarks to avenge her family. But suddenly, another piece of the puzzle shimmered before her. If Lawrence wasn't truly one of them, what was he, enemy, ally, or something else entirely? Later in her small room, Sophia lay awake staring at the ceiling. The mansion was silent, save for the hum of the California night outside. She thought of Claudia's brittle smile, Marco's loneliness, Victoria's icy control, and Lawrence's eyes sharp and searching. The family wore masks of perfection, but behind them were fractures waiting to split open. All she had to do was push at the right cracks. She turned onto her side, whispering into the dark. This is only the beginning. Yet even as she closed her eyes, the image that lingered was not of Richard Clark, the man she had sworn to destroy. It was of Lawrence, standing apart from his family, his gaze unreadable, his silence heavy as stone. And for the first time, Sophia wondered if she had stepped into a battlefield more complicated than she had imagined. The mansion had its own rhythm at night. When the sun dipped behind the Hollywood Hills, the city's noise faded into a distant hum, and the Clark estate became a place of whispers, footsteps, and secrets. Sophia moved silently through the long corridor, her tray balanced with polished glasses. She quickly learned to blend into the background and become a part of the furniture seen but not noticed. But tonight, she felt eyes on her. She glanced up, and there he was. Lawrence Clark leaned against the study doorway, a book in hand, his posture casual yet watchful. The golden lamplight threw sharp shadows across his face, emphasizing the calm restraint in his expression. "You're still awake," he said, voice low and steady. Sophia lowered her gaze. "Just finishing my tasks, sir." He studied her momentarily before turning slightly, gesturing toward the study. "Come in. The hallway isn't the place for conversation." Her pulse stumbled. Conversation with him. She followed cautiously, closing the door behind her. The study smelled of leather and old paper. Bookshelves climbed toward the ceiling, heavy curtains drawn against the night. Lawrence placed his book on the desk, his eyes on her now with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. "You've been here less than a week," he began. Yet you've already won my mother's approval. That doesn't happen often. Sophia clasped her hands in front of her apron. I only try to do my work well. A faint smile touched his lips, though it held no warmth. That's the thing. You try too hard. Most staff come and go, but you... He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. You observe. You listen as if you're collecting pieces of something. Her stomach tightened. She forced a gentle laugh. I don't know what you mean, sir. He stepped closer, not threatening, but steady. Don't play innocent with me. I see through masks. I've worn one my entire life. Sophia's breath caught. His words struck closer to her truth than she wanted. She swallowed, holding his gaze, refusing to retreat. Then you mistake me for someone like yourself. Silence stretched between them. Something flickered in his eyes for the first time. Not suspicion, but curiosity. You speak boldly, he said finally, for someone in your position. Her lips curved faintly, perhaps because I have nothing to lose. Their eyes locked and the air seemed to pulse between them, taut with something unspoken. The next morning, Sophia found herself assigned to the library. Dusting shelves, arranging books, simple tasks. Yet it felt deliberate, as if Victoria had placed her where Lawrence spent most of his time. And indeed, he was there. Seated by the tall windows, a cup of black coffee beside him, he read with a focus that seemed unshakable. Sophia moved quietly, but occasionally, she felt his eyes lift from the page, skimming her like a blade across silk. She steadied her breath, dusting the rows. At last, when she reached the corner nearest his chair, she murmured, You read as though the world doesn't exist outside those pages. His brow arched slightly. And you clean as though you're hiding from it. Her hand froze on the shelf. Slowly she turned her head. Is that what you think? He set the book down, leaning back. You're not here to clean floors or polish silver. You have a reason, a purpose. Her heart raced. Too dangerous. Too close. But instead of denying, she tilted her chin, letting her voice soften. And if I do, what purpose could a woman like me possibly have in a house like this? For the first time, Lawrence's gaze wavered. He looked away, as though something in her question reflected too much of himself. I don't know yet, he admitted quietly. Days passed, each filled with duties that kept her hands busy, but her mind sharper. Sophia learned the rhythms of the Clark family, the way Claudia spent hours perfecting her social media image, how Marco avoided his parents, how Victoria controlled everything with a glance. And she learned Lawrence's rhythm too. Mornings with books, afternoons in the gym, evenings in the garden, where he walked alone, silent as the statues by the fountain. She tried to avoid him, but inevitably paths crossed. Carrying linens through the hall one evening, she nearly collided with him. The fabric slipped, and his hand shot out, steadying her arm. The contact was brief, but the spark it sent startled her. Careful, he murmured. Her eyes lifted to his, closer than they had ever been. And for one dangerous heartbeat, she forgot her role, forgot the mask. She was not Kara Simmons, the maid she was. Sophia, a woman standing too near a man who saw more than he should. She pulled back quickly, clutching the linens to her chest. Thank you, sir. But his gaze lingered as though he had glimpsed a truth she had not meant to show. Late one night, unable to sleep, Sophia wandered to the veranda. The Los Angeles skyline glittered in the distance, the air thick with the scent of roses. She leaned on the railing, whispering, one step at a time. Win their trust. Break them apart. Talking to yourself. She spun. Lawrence stood a few feet away, a glass of whiskey in hand. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled, his posture relaxed, yet alert. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said quickly. "You're not intruding." He sipped the drink, eyes fixed on the city lights. "This house is big enough to swallow everyone whole. You have to find your corner." Sophia studied him, the outline of his jaw, the heaviness in his eyes. "And have you found yours?" A faint smile, bitter around the edges. "I'm still looking." She should have walked away, but the honesty in his tone tethered her. "You don't seem like the others," she said softly. His gaze flicked to hers. For a moment, silence. "Then neither do you." Her breath caught. He knew, or at least he suspected. He set the glass down, stepping closer. "Kara Simmons. Is that really your name?" The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. She forced her voice steady. "Why would you ask such a thing? Because—" His eyes locked onto hers, sharp, searching. "I can tell when someone is hiding, and you're hiding something, Kara." Her pulse thundered. She parted her lips to reply, to deflect, but no words came. Lawrence's expression softened, not accusation, but something more dangerous. "Understanding. You don't have to tell me tonight," he murmured. "But one day, I'll know." Then he returned to the hall's shadows, leaving her trembling against the railing. Sophia pressed her palms to her face in her room, her breath ragged. He was too close, too perceptive. But instead of fear, she felt something far more unsettling. A pull toward the man who might unravel her lies, but also carried a loneliness that mirrored her own. As she lay down, sleep eluded her. Only one thought echoed in her mind, relentless as the California night outside. What happens when the person who can destroy you is also the one who understands you best? The Clark mansion glittered with perfection during the day, but Sophia had begun to notice the cracks. They were subtle, an edge in Victoria's voice, Claudia's sudden temper, Marco's restless sighs, but cracks nonetheless. All it would take was pressure, a whisper in the right place to split the porcelain mask the family wore. And she was ready to begin. That morning, Victoria sat in the veranda's shade, a magazine draped across her lap. Her silk robe shimmered, her diamonds catching the light, as if she needed the world to remember who she was, even in private. Sophia approached with a tray of coffee and pastries. "Here you are, ma'am," she said softly, setting the porcelain cup on the table. Victoria did not look at her. She only flicked her wrist. "Leave it there." Sophia hesitated, then lowered her voice, almost as if speaking to herself. "Forgive me. I don't know if I should say this." Victoria's head lifted, eyes narrowing. "Say what?" Sophia bit her lip, pretending to wrestle with hesitation. "It's nothing, really. Only I overheard something in the garden yesterday. The groundskeepers were talking about your eldest son." At once, Victoria's hand stilled on the magazine. "Lawrence." "Yes, ma'am." Sophia lowered her gaze, the picture of reluctant innocence. "They said things I shouldn't repeat about. Whether he was the mayor's child." The porcelain cup clicked sharply against the saucer as Victoria set it down. "What?" Sophia shook her head quickly, as though regretting her words. "I shouldn't have mentioned it. Gossip is dangerous. I only thought you should know before it spreads beyond the walls." For a heartbeat, silence hung heavy between them. Then Victoria exhaled, her lips pressed into a thin line. "People always talk. Envious, jealous. Please don't listen to them." "Yes, ma'am," Sophia murmured, bowing. But as she walked away, she felt the tremor she had planted take root. Victoria's fingers had trembled. Her mask had cracked. That evening, Sophia was sent to deliver documents downtown. The streets of Los Angeles buzzed with neon lights and restless traffic. She clutched the envelope tightly as she walked past a row of sleek bars. She felt it, their footsteps behind her, too close, too steady. She quickened her pace. "Hey, sweetheart," a rough voice called. A man reeking of alcohol stepped into her path. Another loomed behind her. Their grins were wide, sharp, with the thrill of power. Going somewhere in a hurry, one of them asked, blocking her way. Her chest tightened. She glanced around, but the sidewalk was deserted, the hum of traffic distant. "Please," she said, forcing calm. "I don't want trouble." The taller man leaned closer, breath heavy with liquor. "Trouble's already here." Panic surged. She took a step back just as a shadow moved behind them. In a flash, the taller man doubled over, clutching his stomach where a fist had driven the air from him. The second swung wildly, but his arm was caught twisted and shoved hard against the wall. Lawrence stood between them, his stance steady, his expression deadly calm. "Walk away," he said, voice low as steel. The men cursed, groaning, then stumbled into the night, disappearing into the alley. Sophia pressed a hand to her chest, her breath shaky. Are you hurt?" Lawrence cut in his eyes, scanning her. She shook her head, though her pulse raced. "No, I'm fine." For a moment, neither spoke. The city lights flickered against his profile, sharp and beautiful in its restraint. He had saved her, risked himself for her, yet his face remained unreadable, as though it was nothing. "Be careful," he said finally, his tone softer now. "This city doesn't forgive carelessness." Her throat tightened. "Why were you even here?" He looked at her, then really looked, and the intensity in his gaze pinned her in place. "Maybe I was following you. I was making sure you weren't what I think you are." Her breath caught. "And what do you think I am?" His lips curved faintly, though not in amusement. "A liar, but one worth protecting." The words settled between them like a secret. Back at the mansion, Sophia couldn't sleep. She repeatedly replayed the scene, the danger, the sudden violence, and the way Lawrence had stood before her without hesitation. He was a Clark, her enemy. But he was also something else, a man apart and carrying his own chains. And for the first time, her certainty wavered. The following day, Claudia's shrill voice echoed through the hall. "Kara, my white blazer. Where is it? I told you I need it today." Sophia hurried into her room, holding the garment freshly pressed. "Here, ma'am." Claudia snatched it, inspecting it with narrowed eyes. "It better not embarrass me in front of my followers." "Do you understand how vital this shoot is?" Sophia politely responded, but her eyes flicked toward the vanity table, cluttered with makeup and empty pill bottles. Beneath Claudia's flawless facade lay desperation fissures Sophia knew she could widen later. She nearly collided with Lawrence in the hallway as she left the room. His eyes scanned her face as if searching for something. "You're quieter than usual," he said softly. Sophia forced a small smile. "Just tired." But his gaze lingered, and for a moment she thought he might press further. Instead, he only nodded and walked away, his silence heavy with meaning. That night, the family gathered for dinner again. Richard was absent as always. Victoria presided, her posture elegant, but her eyes shadowed with thought. Claudia laughed too loudly at something on her phone. Marco barely spoke, shoving food around his plate. And Lawrence, silent as ever. Sophia moved between them, serving dishes, pouring water. Yet she felt Lawrence's gaze on her, occasionally lingering, questioning. She knew he suspected. She knew he might already see through her. But instead of fear, a strange calm settled over her. Because deep down, she had begun to suspect something too, that Lawrence was not her enemy. That beneath his silence lay a wound not unlike her own. After dinner, she stepped onto the veranda for air. The night was warm, the city skyline glittering. She thought she was alone until she heard the quiet creak of the door. Lawrence stepped out, his hands in his pockets, his eyes catching hers in the moonlight. You should be more careful, he said, voice low. Last night could have ended differently. Sophia's breath slowed. And yet, you were there. A pause. His eyes darkened, unreadable. Yes, and I'll be there again. Something shifted in her chest, fragile and frightening. She turned away, clutching the railing. Why? Why would you protect me? For a moment there was only silence. Then his voice, soft, steady, carrying a weight she hadn't expected. Because you and I... He stopped, exhaling slowly. We're not so different, are we? Sophia froze. Her heart pounded. Lawrence was already retreating into the shadows when she turned back, leaving her trembling beneath the stars. She pressed her hands to the railing, her chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. Her plan had been clear, simple. Destroy the Clarks, avenge her family. But now the edges blurred. Lawrence was a Clark, yes, but he was also something else. A fracture, a secret, a mirror, and the one person who might stand beside her when the house finally came crashing down. The morning began with whispers. Servants moved through the Clark mansion with unusual haste. Their voices hushed, their eyes darting, as though the walls themselves might listen. Sophia caught fragments as she polished silver in the dining room. On the news already, UCLA professor Claudia Clark caught cheating. Her hand stilled on the silver platter. So it had begun. The cracks she had been waiting for were breaking open faster than expected. By mid-morning, the truth spilled across every glowing screen, headlines declaring councilman's daughter in academic scandal. A leaked report accused Claudia of trading favors for grades. Grainy photos surfaced of her entering a professor's office late at night. Her flawless social media image, carefully curated outfits, designer handbags, perfect smiles, was shattered in a single strike. When Sophia entered Claudia's room, she found the young woman pacing wildly, her phone in hand, tears smudging her makeup. They're lying, Claudia sobbed, tossing the device onto the bed. They don't know me. I didn't. Her voice cracked. She buried her face in her hands. For a moment, Sophia hesitated, her heart tightening at the sight. But before she could speak, the door swung open. Victoria stormed in silk robe, flowing behind her like the train of a queen entering her throne room. In her hand, she clutched a tablet glowing with the damning article. What is this? Victoria's voice cut sharp as glass. Claudia's head snapped up. Mom, it's not what they say. Not what they say. Victoria's eyes blazed. Your name is plastered across every news site in Los Angeles. Do you understand what this does to us? To me, the daughter of Richard Clark caught in a scandal, like an ordinary person, stopped herself, but the venom in the word was clear. Claudia trembled, her voice shrinking. I was scared. I thought I'd fail. You thought? Victoria's palm struck the air like a whip. Do you know how hard I've worked on this image? Every move, every smile calculated. And you ruin it with your stupidity. Sophia's breath caught. The slap never came, but the cruelty in Victoria's tone was sharper than any hand. Claudia sank to her knees, sobbing. I just wanted you to be proud of me. Just once. Victoria's eyes flickered, but only for a heartbeat. She turned away, cold as marble. You're a disgrace. You are nothing if you cannot carry the Clark name without shame. The door slammed behind her, leaving silence heavy in the air. Sophia stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had wanted to see this family collapse to savor their unraveling. Yet the image of Claudia kneeling on the floor, broken and begging for love that would never come. It pierced something raw inside her. Because she remembered being that child once and begging her father to see, claim, and love her. And like Claudia, she had been met with silence, rejection, and cruelty. Her hands trembled as she reached for a tissue, offering it gently. Claudia snatched it, wiping her face, but her eyes never met Sophia's. "Leave me alone," Claudia whispered. Sophia obeyed, retreating into the hallway, her chest tight. Later, as she crossed the garden, she found Lawrence waiting by the fountain. He stood tall, his sleeves rolled, sunlight catching the sharp lines of his face. "You saw it," he said. Sophia nodded, lowering her voice. "She was destroyed by her own mother." Lawrence's jaw tightened. "That's how it's always been, perfection or nothing. Love here isn't unconditional. It's conditional, transactional. Fail, and you're discarded." The bitterness in his tone startled her. For the first time, he looked less like the silent observer and more like a man carrying scars as deep as her own. Sophia's throat ached. No one deserves that, not even her. His eyes flicked toward her, sharp, but softened by something almost like understanding. "Strange," he murmured. "You came here with ice in your eyes. But you pity her." Sophia looked away. "Maybe because I know what it feels like to be unwanted." Silence hung heavy and intimate. Then Lawrence stepped closer, his voice low. "Careful, Sophia." The sound of her name on his lips jolted her. He hadn't used it before, hadn't dared strip away her disguise. But now it slid into the air, steady, undeniable. Her eyes widened. I told you," he said, gaze unyielding. "I can see through masks. And yours is slipping." Her breath caught fear and something else, something warmer tangling inside her chest. "You should hate me," she whispered. "I'm not your ally." He studied her for a long moment, then shook his head. "Maybe not. But you're not my enemy either." The words sank into her like a stone into deep water, ripples spreading in places she didn't want touched. That evening, the mansion buzzed with unrest. Marco stormed through the halls, headphones blaring, muttering about classmates sending him links to his sister's scandal. Servants whispered in corners. Victoria locked herself in the study, calling lawyers to silence the storm. And Claudia vanished. Her room was empty, the closet half-stripped, and a suitcase was missing. On the bed lay her phone. The screen cracked as if it had been dropped in haste. Victoria's scream of rage echoed through the halls when she discovered it. "Find her!" She cannot be seen in public looking like this. Not now. But Claudia was already gone, swallowed by the city outside their gilded cage. Sophia stood in the doorway of the abandoned room, her hand brushing the cold sheets. This was it, the first real fracture. The perfect Clark family image was bleeding in the streets, their daughter running from their name. And Sophia knew this was only the beginning. That night, she found herself again on the veranda staring at the city lights. Her heart was heavy, her mind torn. She had wanted destruction. She had planned for it. And yet, seeing Claudia's tears, hearing her voice break it, had felt less like victory and more like watching herself collapse again. "You're thinking too hard," a voice said quietly behind her. She turned. Lawrence leaned against the railing. His shirt sleeves rolled, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "You should stop sneaking up on me," she murmured. "You should stop being so easy to find," he countered. Their eyes met, and something unspoken stretched between them, fragile and charged. Sophia lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "Everything's falling apart, faster than I imagined." "Isn't that what you wanted?" he asked softly. "Yes," she admitted. "But sometimes, revenge doesn't look the way you thought it would." Lawrence's hand brushed hers on the railing for the first time, brief but deliberate. The contact sent a warmth through her chest she hadn't felt in years. He didn't look at her when he spoke, his voice low. "Then you may need something else to want." Her breath caught her pulse, stuttering. She should have pulled away. She should have remembered her vow, her plan, the ashes of her mother and sister. But in that quiet moment, under the Los Angeles night, with the city glittering beneath them, she could only feel the truth. The fracture in the Clark family wasn't the only one opening. Something inside her was breaking too. And Lawrence Clark was standing right in the middle of it. The Clark mansion no longer gleamed the way it once did. Its chandeliers still sparkled. Its marble floors still shone. But the air inside had changed. Whispers filled the halls like restless ghosts. The servants walked on eggshells, careful with every step. Even the walls seemed to absorb the tension, humming with a brittle silence. Sophia felt it most in Victoria, where once the lady of the house had glided like a queen, commanding with cold precision. Now she moved like a woman, hunted sharp, irritable, her eyes darting with suspicion. The scandal of Claudia had carved deep cracks into her composure, and Victoria's fury fell on anyone within reach, especially Sophia. One afternoon, as Sophia set a vase of roses in the dining hall, Victoria entered abruptly, her heels clicking like gunshots. "You," she snapped, eyes flashing. "Why is this arrangement so dreadful? Did I not say no thorns? Look at this." She snatched a stem, pricking her finger on the thorn she claimed to despise. A bead of blood welled up. Sophia stepped forward instinctively. "Ma'am, let me. Please don't touch me." Victoria's hand lashed out, shoving the vase so hard it toppled, water spilling across the polished table. Her voice cracked with something raw. "You think I don't see you watching, lurking? Who are you really?" Sophia froze. The question sliced through her composure. For a heartbeat, she was no longer the perfect servant, but the abandoned daughter who carried truth like a weapon under her skin. Enough." The word came not from Victoria, but from the doorway. Lawrence stood there, tall and unyielding, his gaze fixed on his stepmother. His voice was calm, but beneath it a storm brewed. "She's just doing her job. Don't twist your paranoia into cruelty." Victoria stiffened, her lips trembling as though to argue, but something in Lawrence's eyes silenced her. She swept past them both with a bitter huff, leaving the air heavy with the echo of her heels. Sophia's hands trembled as she stooped to gather the fallen roses. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered, not looking at him. Lawrence crouched beside her, his fingers brushing hers as he reached for a broken stem. "And let her devour you. No, I've seen enough of that." Their hands lingered together a moment too long, and Sophia's heart stumbled against her ribs. That night the mansion felt like a pressure cooker. Marco remained locked in his room, music pounding through the walls. Richard had not come home for 2 nights, and Victoria's shadow prowled the corridors, restless and unhinged. Sophia slipped out to the veranda for air, needing space to breathe. The city sprawled below its lights, shimmering like 1,000 secrets. "You shouldn't be alone out here." She turned. Lawrence stood behind her, his presence quieter than the night itself. Sophia tried to smile, though her voice betrayed her unease. "I'm always alone." He moved closer, close enough that she could see the faint tension at the corners of his mouth. "Not anymore." The words landed between them, heavy, undeniable. Her throat tightened. "Why do you protect me? You don't even know who I am." His eyes locked with hers, steady, piercing. "Don't I?" Her breath caught. The way he said it, calm, certain, shook her more than accusation ever could. She wanted to deny it, to cling to the mask she had built so carefully. But something in his gaze unraveled her defenses. Lawrence. For the first time, he reached for her hand openly, his touch warm, grounding. "I don't need to know everything. I know I'd rather stand with you than against you." The words stole her breath. She should have pulled away. Instead, she held on, days blurred. The mansion grew darker, its grand rooms echoing with absence, Claudia's empty laughter, Richard's vanishing footsteps, even Marco's voice swallowed by his headphones. But in that darkness, Sophia and Lawrence carved out slivers of light. A glance across the dining hall, a brush of fingers as she passed him a glass. Words whispered in the stillness of night, shared like confessions. Neither had meant to give. And yet beneath the fragile closeness, danger coiled. Sophia knew the longer she stayed, the thinner her mask became. One evening, as she slipped into the library to tidy, she found Lawrence already there. A book lay open before him, but his eyes were distant shadowed. "You look like you're carrying ghosts," Sophia said softly. He gave a humorless laugh. "Aren't we both?" When she tilted her head, he closed the book slowly, meeting her gaze with something raw. "You think you're the only one with secrets?" His voice was low-edged with pain. "The Clarks paraded me as their perfect son. But I'm not Richard's blood, not even close. They adopted me when it suited them, when they needed the image of a family whole." The words struck her like a spark in dry grass. Her lips parted, shock and recognition flooding her at once. You're not." He shook his head. "No, I've never been there. Just a shield, a pawn. A name without belonging." Sophia's breath trembled. For years she had thought herself alone in her exile, the discarded child. And before her another soul was carved from the same abandonment. Slowly she stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Then you understand." His hand found hers, their palms meeting in quiet solidarity. "More than you know." In that moment, the mansion's shadows seemed to fall away, leaving only the fragile truth binding them. Two children are unloved, two secrets intertwined, and perhaps the beginning of something neither revenge nor cruelty could destroy. The mansion had grown quieter, but it was not the peace of comfort. It was the silence of fracture, a house waiting for collapse. Victoria drifted like a ghost through its corridors, snapping at servants one moment, and retreating into silence the next. Marco hardly left his room. Richard came home late, if at all. To the world outside, the Clarks were still a dynasty, but within their empire trembled. And in that trembling, Sophia and Lawrence finally found each other. It began on the rooftop terrace one sleepless night. Sophia stood at the railing, the Los Angeles skyline glittering in the distance, her arms tightly against the chill. She did not hear him approach until his voice broke the silence. "You never sleep, do you?" She turned to find Lawrence, a shadow in a white shirt and rolled sleeves, the city's glow painting him in silver. "Neither do you," she replied softly. He stepped closer, his presence steady. "Insomnia is the only inheritance I've accepted from this family." Sophia let out a small breath that could have been a laugh. "At least it keeps us awake to the truth." Their eyes met, and the distance between them collapsed in that look. For days they had circled each other with suspicion, with half-truths and guarded silences. Tonight the weight of unspoken words pressed too heavily to ignore. "Lawrence," she said, her voice low, "I can't do this alone anymore. If I move too soon, I'll fail. If I stay silent, he wins again." His gaze sharpened, steady on her. "Then don't stay silent. Let me stand with you." She blinked. I mean we fight together," he said, firm now. "I've kept records, contracts, receipts, hidden donations, things he never wanted exposed. I never had a reason to use them until now." Her chest tightened. "And you'd risk everything." "For the first time," Lawrence murmured, "risking feels like the only way to survive." The words settled into her bones like a vow. Without realizing it, Sophia's hand reached for his. His fingers closed around hers, strong and warm, sealing their pact in the hush of night. The following days were a careful dance of shadows. Sophia continued as the quiet servant in public, arranging flowers, serving wine, and bowing her head. Lawrence played the dutiful son, cold, restrained, silent. But in the hidden corners of the mansion, whispers bloomed like dangerous flowers. In the library, he spread documents across the table by the dim light of a single lamp. Look, city funds diverted into shell companies, construction projects that never broke ground. He's been feeding the public lies for years. Sophia leaned closer, scanning the numbers. Their shoulders brushed, sending a shiver through her. If this leaks, it will. Lawrence interrupted softly. But timing is everything. If we move too soon, he buries it. If we wait too long, we lose our chance. Their eyes met over the papers, and Sophia's breath caught. They were not just planning an exposure, but weaving their lives into the same fragile thread. Meanwhile, the Clark household unraveled further. One morning, Marco wandered into the breakfast hall, hair disheveled, eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness. "Where's Claudia?" he muttered, voice cracking. "No one tells me anything." Victoria snapped from her seat, slamming her glass down. "Do not mention her name. That girl abandoned us. She is no longer part of this family." Marco flinched, retreating to his room, and Sophia's heart clenched at the sight. Another victim. Another child left to drown in silence. But she said nothing. Not yet. That night, Sophia and Lawrence met again, this time in the garage, where the smell of oil and dust masked their whispers. "I have a contact," Sophia admitted. "Someone outside who can help publish what we find. He's been waiting for proof." Lawrence studied her carefully. "And you trust him?" She hesitated, then nodded, more than anyone here. For a moment, his eyes darkened, as though jealousy flickered in them. But then he exhaled. "Then we use him. But you don't go alone. Promise me that." Her lips curved faintly. "Since when do you give me orders?" His gaze softened. "Since I realized I can't watch you walk into danger without wanting to follow." The confession stole her breath. She wanted to respond, to tell him the ache she carried whenever their hands brushed, whenever his voice softened just for her. But instead she only whispered, then followed closely. 2 nights later, Sophia slipped from the mansion. A folder pressed against her chest. Her heartbeat thundered as she crossed the dark streets to a small cafe on the edge of downtown. Inside, the lights were dim, the tables nearly empty. A man in a worn suit waited in the corner. He looked up as she approached, his eyes sharp, despite his tired face. "You're late," he murmured. "I had to be careful," she said, sliding the folder across. "This is only the beginning. If anything happens to me, make sure it goes out." The man nodded, tucking it away. "You're brave, Sophia. But bravery in this city often comes with a price." She left quickly, the night air cold against her skin. Each step back toward the mansion felt heavier. She had taken the first real strike. There was no turning back. When she slipped through the side entrance, the halls were silent. Too silent. And then she felt it, the unmistakable weight of eyes. She turned, her breath catching. At the end of the corridor, half shrouded in shadow, stood Marco. His headphones hung around his neck, his face pale, uncertain. He said nothing. But his eyes lingered on the faint outline of the folder, no longer in her hands, the way she slipped in from the dark. Sophia's chest tightened. He knew something. The silence stretched, fragile, dangerous. Then Marco turned abruptly, disappearing into his room, the door slamming shut behind him. Sophia pressed her back against the wall, her pulse racing. The pact she and Lawrence had forged was no longer secret. Someone had seen. And in a house already crumbling, even a whisper of suspicion could ignite everything. The days after the midnight encounter felt heavier, every corridor echoing with unspoken danger. Sophia moved through the mansion with practiced calm, but beneath her composed surface, her pulse quickened each time she passed Marco's door. He had seen her. She knew it. And now she felt his gaze everywhere, subtle, fleeting, but sharp as a knife. The door cracked open one morning as she set a breakfast tray outside Marco's room. His face appeared pale in the half-light headphones hanging loosely around his neck. "Who were you meeting?" His voice was flat, too steady for someone so young. Sophia forced a smile. "Just an errand." He studied her eyes, narrowing. "You're lying." Before she could answer, the door slammed shut. Sophia stood frozen, the tray trembling in her hands. That evening, she found Lawrence waiting near the library. His eyes darkened when he saw her expression. "He's watching me," she whispered. "He knows." Lawrence's jaw tightened. "Then we don't wait for him to speak. We confront him before he runs to Richard." Her stomach clenched. "And if he does, then we deal with it together." The certainty in his voice steadied her, though fear still coiled tight in her chest. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Marco was in the study, slouched in a leather chair, the glow of a video game flickering across his face. Sophia hesitated at the door, but Lawrence pushed it open, his presence filling the room. "Turn it off," Lawrence said. Marco glanced up, defiant, then tossed the controller aside. "What do you want?" Sophia stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Marco, you saw me the other night." The boy's lips curved into a bitter smile. "I did. And I know you're not just some maid." His gaze flicked to Lawrence. "And you, what are you hiding with her?" Sophia's chest tightened. Words tangled on her tongue, but Lawrence spoke first. "She's not your enemy," he said firmly. "Neither am I. The real enemy is the man you call father." Marco's eyes widened, anger flashing. "You don't know anything about him." "I know enough." Lawrence cut in. "I know he left you to rot in this house while he parades himself in front of cameras. I know he gives you toys instead of love." Marco's voice cracked, the bitterness spilling. "And what do you know about love? You're not even his real son." Silence fell. Sophia's breath caught Marco new. Lawrence didn't flinch. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm not. But maybe that's why I see the truth clearer than you do." Marco's fists clenched on his knees, his bravado faltering. Sophia crossed the room, kneeling slightly to meet his eyes. "Marco," she whispered, "I know how it feels. To be forgotten. To want someone to see you. That's why I won't lie to you. You saw me because I was trying to protect myself. But more than that, I want to protect you too." His eyes glistened, confusion warring with anger. "Why would you care?" "Because I see myself in you," she said. For a long moment he said nothing. Then with a shaky breath he looked away. "I won't tell. Not because of him, but because of you." Sophia's throat ached with relief. "Thank you." Lawrence placed a steady hand on Marco's shoulder. "One day you'll understand why we fight him." Marco didn't answer, but he didn't pull away either. Later, Sophia and Lawrence found themselves alone in the dimly lit corridor. Relief lingered, but so did something sharper, an intimacy that pulsed beneath their silence. Lawrence murmured, "You handled him better than I could," his eyes fixed on her. Sophia shook her head, her voice soft. "He's just a boy, Lawrence. A lonely boy. Anger is just another way of crying." For a moment their gazes held the air thick between them. His hand brushed hers, deliberate this time. "You amaze me," he whispered. Her breath stilled, her pulse fluttering at the honesty in his tone. She should have stepped back and reminded herself of her mission. Instead, she let the warmth of his hand linger and anchor in the storm. "Don't," she whispered, though the word lacked conviction. "Don't know what?" Please don't make me forget why I'm here." His lips curved faint and bittersweet. "Maybe I don't want you to forget." Her heart ached. She turned away afraid of what she might do if she stayed. But the fragile quiet was shattered that very night. The mansion's front doors swung open with a crash, echoing down the marble halls. Voices rose, Richard's booming laugh, and the sharp clack of unfamiliar heels. Sophia froze at the top of the staircase, her blood running cold. There he was, the man who had destroyed her life, sweeping into his house, with a woman half his age on his arm, her lipstick smeared from kisses stolen in the back of a limousine. Victoria appeared in the hallway, pale with shock, her wine glass slipping from her fingers and shattering against the floor. "Richard," she hissed, her voice trembling with fury. But Richard only smirked, pulling the woman closer. "Don't wait up, darling." The sight twisted Sophia's stomach, rage flaring hot and raw. For years she had dreamed of seeing him ruined. Tonight she realized the moment was closer than she had dared to hope. But in the shadows behind her, Lawrence's hand found hers, his whisper steady in the chaos. "This is where it begins." Morning came with the sting of camera flashes. Sophia watched from an upstairs window as paparazzi clustered at the mansion gates, their voices rising like vultures circling a wounded animal. Victoria stood by the door, perfect hair and immaculate makeup, failing to hide the tremor in her hands. She had demanded the staff escort her out, determined to maintain her dignity. But as soon as she stepped outside, the frenzy descended. "Mrs. Clark, is it faithful Richard who has been seen with another woman?" "Mrs. Clark, do you have a comment about the leaked audit reports? Are you leaving your husband?" The microphones thrust toward her like weapons. For a moment, Victoria froze. Then, with a brittle smile, she lifted her chin. No comment. But her voice cracked on the words, and the photographers captured it. Her fear, humiliation, the collapse of the perfect image she had built, brick by brick. Sophia's breath caught. This was what she had wanted. This was justice, revenge. And yet, as she watched Victoria stumble back inside, eyes hollow with defeat, a strange heaviness pressed against her chest. It had been Sophia who delivered the first strike. The night before, under the cover of darkness, she had slipped the folder into her contact's hands, the financial records, the proof of Richard's embezzlement. By dawn, the headlines had exploded. Councilman Clark under fire, missing city funds, and private affairs uncovered. The city buzzed with scandal. Talk shows dissected his every move, late-night hosts turned his name into a punchline, and political allies began to distance themselves. For years, Sophia had dreamed of this moment. But now that it was here, she found no triumph in the taste. Only the sharp edge of bitterness, the reminder that revenge never healed, it only consumed. That evening, she lingered in the empty library, staring at the flickering light of the fireplace. Her hands trembled, though from triumph or regret she could not tell. "You did it." The voice behind her was soft but certain. Lawrence stepped into the glow, his eyes fixed on her as if he had known all along. Sophia turned, her throat tightening. "You knew I've been waiting," he admitted. "I saw the papers this morning and knew this was your hand." She swallowed hard. "And you're not angry?" His gaze darkened, intense. "Angry? No." Relieved. "Finally, someone dared to do what I've wanted for years." Her breath faltered. "But if he finds out, if anyone suspects, then he'll have to go through me first." The conviction in his voice startled her. He wasn't merely offering protection, he was binding himself to her. The silence thickened for a moment, charged with the weight of all the words they hadn't spoken. Then Lawrence crossed the room, his hand brushing hers, deliberate, steady. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore," he murmured. Her heart raced. She should have stepped back and ended the vow she had sworn to destroy his family. But when she met his gaze, she saw not a Clark, not the blood of Richard, but a man carved from the same loneliness as her. And in that moment, the walls around her heart cracked. Later that night, as the storm outside rattled the windows, Sophia sat on the edge of her narrow bed, unable to still her racing thoughts. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Lawrence damp from the rain, his expression unreadable. "I couldn't sleep," he said. She hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. The small room seemed to shrink with his presence. For a while they said nothing, only listening to the rain's steady drum against the glass. Then Lawrence spoke, his voice low. "You think this is the end, but it's not. Richard won't go down easily. He'll fight. He'll hunt whoever betrayed him." Sophia's hands clenched in her lap. "I know." His gaze softened. "That's why I need you to trust me. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Her throat tightened. The weight of his words, the way he said we pulled at something deep inside her. She whispered almost against her will. "Why me?" "Lawrence." For the first time, he let the truth break through his restraint. His hand cupped her cheek warm against her trembling skin. "Because you're the first person who ever saw me. Not as a Clark, not as their puppet. Just me." Her breath caught. The world tilted, the rain faded, and all that remained was the fragile closeness between them. "I shouldn't," she began. "Neither should I," he murmured. And yet, when his lips brushed hers, it felt inevitable. A kiss was initially soft and tentative, then deepening with a hunger neither dared admit. The kind of kiss that carried years of silence, of wounds and longing, melting into something fierce and undeniable. When they finally pulled apart, both were trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of what had passed between them. There was no going back. But even as the fragile warmth lingered, the world outside turned colder. The next morning, Richard appeared on live television. His voice boomed across every screen, his smile confident, despite the storm around him. He declared these accusations false, his hand slicing the air for emphasis. "Enemies seek to tarnish my name, but I promise the people of this city I will rise above. I will clean my name. And when I discover who is behind this betrayal, they will regret it." Sophia stood in the corner of the mansion's lounge, the television light casting his shadow across her face. Her blood chilled. His words were not for the public. They were a warning. Beside her, Lawrence's hand brushed hers, steady and silent. Their secret war had just become deadly. The mansion no longer breathed with silence. It shuddered with tension. Every corner vibrated with Richard's fury after his broadcast. Every servant moved like prey under the shadow of a predator. Sophia kept her mask in place, but her heart pounded with the knowledge that the storm was nearing its breaking point. That evening, Richard returned home, the door slamming against the marble wall, as though announcing his wrath. Victoria stood waiting in the grand hall, a glass of wine trembling. "You humiliated me," she spat. "You parade your mistress through our home, and now the world laughs at me." Richard's eyes flashed. "Do you think this is about you? My name is on the ballot, and my reputation is on trial. And someone under this roof is trying to destroy me." Victoria's laughter cracked brittle. "Destroy you? You've done that yourself. You steal, cheat, lie. Did you think it would never surface?" The servants gasped from the shadows. Richard's hand rose as if to strike, but then his gaze caught Sophia, standing at the edge of the room, quiet and watchful. His eyes narrowed. "You," he said, voice low, "dangerous. You've been here too long for a simple maid. Who sent you?" Sophia's breath froze. Victoria turned sharply, confusion flickering across her face. "What is he talking about?" Sophia opened her mouth, but before words could form, Lawrence stepped forward, positioning himself between her and Richard. "Enough," he said. "If you're searching for an enemy, look in the mirror." Richard's face darkened, veins rising in his neck. "Ungrateful bastard. You've never been mine. You were nothing until I gave you a name." Sophia's heart clenched at the venom in his tone. The truth was spilling faster than she could contain it. That night, the storm broke. It began with shouting behind closed doors, Richard and Victoria tearing into each other with years of repressed loathing. Marco retreated into the shadows, his headphones unable to drown out the noise. And then the fire. No one knew how it started. Some whispered it was an accident in the kitchen. Others swore they saw Richard's mistress fleeing with a lighter in hand. But flames licked the curtains of the West Wing, devouring the mansion's opulence with a hunger as merciless as the scandals outside. Smoke filled the halls. Servants screamed. Portraits of the Clark dynasty blackened and curled in the heat. Sophia coughed, her lungs burning, searching for an escape, when a strong hand seized hers. "Come with me!" Lawrence shouted through the smoke. He pulled her through collapsing corridors, their bodies pressed close as fire roared around them. Her fingers clutched his as lifelines refusing to let go. At last they burst into the night, the mansion's facade glowing behind them like a collapsing empire. Sirens wailed in the distance. Sophia turned, chest heaving, watching the house crumble. For years she had dreamed of this destruction. Standing in the ashes of perfection, she felt triumph and sorrow twined together. "This was my plan," she whispered, "to see them burn." Lawrence's arm wrapped around her, pulling her close. "Then let it burn, but don't let it consume you." She turned into his chest, trembling. For the first time, she let herself lean on him entirely, let the walls of vengeance fall away long enough to feel the truth. "I thought I came here for revenge," she murmured, "but I found you." He tilted her chin up, his eyes fierce even in the glow of destruction. "And you'll never lose me. Not now. Not ever." Their lips met again, desperate and tender, sealing not just passion, but a vow. In the ruin of the Clark Empire, they chose each other. By dawn, the mansion was nothing but smoke and embers. The Clarks were scattered, Victoria weeping silently in the driveway, Marco staring blankly at the rubble, Richard nowhere to be found. Sophia stood beside Lawrence, their hands clasped. "This is not the end," she whispered, voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "It's only the beginning." Lawrence squeezed her hand, his gaze locked on hers. "Then we face it together." The cameras returned at sunrise, capturing the image of a dynasty in ashes. But the world could not see the seed of something new, an alliance, a love forged in fire, a promise that the story was far from over. And so the first chapter of Sophia and Lawrence's journey closes, not with peace, but fire, betrayal, and an impossible love that refuses to die. Will Richard return, stronger, darker, and more dangerous than ever? Will Sophia's vengeance cost her the love she's just found? And can two broken souls truly build a future from ashes? Don't miss the next arc of this story, because what burned tonight was only the mask. The real battle is still to come.